Okay, hey everyone. I'm making this video to talk about Resident Evil Revelations. I mean, this game was a 3DS exclusive until not too long ago when Capcom announced that they're rebuilding the game for home consoles. And as far as the controls go, they don't need to rebuild that because, well, it was one of the first games on the 3DS to use the Circle Pad Pro, which basically gave it the right analog stick if you were or thumbstick, depending on whether you were playing on Xbox or PS3. In that sense, um, so it already had the regular controller setup. You just needed that one accessory to be able to use that regular setup. So in that regard, they don't have to fix that. I'm not too surprised that Capcom is bringing this over to home consoles, let alone adding content to it, because they've been known to do this in the past. Resident Evil Code Veronica was originally released on the Dreamcast, but there were some plot holes because of cutscenes that didn't exist at the time. So when they brought the game over to PS2, they made some cutscenes to fill in those plot holes, and it worked out. I mean, yeah, there were still some other plot holes, but for the most part, they tried to fix what was fixable, at least that they can see. Um, and then, as far as ports go, it happens to a lot of games all the time. Code Veronica was ported to the GameCube like maybe a year or two later after the PS2 port was released. Um, then they have, of course, Resident Evil 4, which was on the GameCube, then PS2 with some extra content, which is essentially what's happening here with Revelations. Because in addition to the fact that it's coming to the home consoles, they're giving us an extra difficulty mode, which makes the game harder and randomizes all the enemy and item placements. They're remixing, they're adding characters to raid mode. They said I think 10, but they revealed two of them being Hunk and what you call it, Rachel. Sorry about that. Interruptions always come through. But yes, Hunk and Rachel were added to raid mode, which I've been seeing all manner of comments saying how Rachel's a fan service character. And I know people use that as into the term sex appeal, but if that's the case, Hunk is just as much fan service, because with all the comments I see based on him, it's like, okay, I guess guys get a boner off of him or something like that, because that's what some of the comments make it seem like. Seriously. So, if Rachel's fan service, so is Hunk. And the game was made. This is being done because of fan reception to the game. Critics and fans loved the game, and even during Resident Evil 6's, prime time, people were talking about how they wished that game would be on consoles. So people are getting their wish, and I gotta admit, I wanted the game to come to consoles, and I'm glad this is happening to give me a chance to play that. In terms of controls, it's more like Resident Evil 4 and 5, but in terms of, maybe it's closer to 6, but in terms of atmosphere, it's more like the older Resident Evil games, in the way that, like, it'll tell you what your mission is, but it won't tell you how to do it. You have to figure that out for yourself, which is good because it's not really holding your hand like Resident Evil 6 did all the way through, which was very annoying to a lot of people who want a challenge, but I can understand why they did that, considering that the majority, being the casual gamers, are so, or at least that's what they call themselves, are so lazy that they do not want to look around, they do not want to try solving the puzzles, or any of the obstacles for themselves. So Capcom, just to please them, made the game tell them, tell everyone how to do whatever puzzles and get around whatever obstacles there were. Which they have to tell you how to get around obstacles, yeah, but they did it to the point where it was excessive, not to mention all the quick time events in Resident Evil 6. There were some parts where I can see, like, okay, maybe this was reasonable, like in Leon's story when you're dealing with the shark boss in chapter 3. I can see how maybe the last two quick time events were reasonable. I played as Helena at that part, so I didn't have to do with the whole Leon swimming thing, even though I tried it at one point. But yeah, I could see how maybe that was reasonable, but not for a majority of the game where it was pretty much activated by QuickTime events. And then, on top of that, some of the ways they use the story and cinematic views by making the camera pan over to show you, hey, look, you have to go here. Like, since people are so lazy and they do not really want to look around and figure this out for themselves. From what I've seen in Revelations, it looks like, nope, they're not going to do that. I mean, they'll explain to you how things work, but they let you figure out for yourself, more or less. And yes, the chapter sections may be short, but that's what else can you expect from a game that was originally a handheld game being brought to home consoles? And as far as ports go, I mean, like I said, Code Veronica got ported a few times. Resident Evil 4 we know got ported a few times. With the port after PS2, of course, there was the Wii, which just added motion controls to the gameplay. And then there was the whole idea of porting over. Let me name some other ports from handhelds. PSP, there was that game Twisted Metal Head On, which got ported over to PS2 at some point. And of course, there's been others that just haven't been coming to mind, or that just haven't came to my mind yet. But I know there's been a few of them. Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker was originally a PSP game, and it got ported to PS3. The God of War, Origins games, the two games that were for PSP, got ported over to PS3. Just to name handheld games that were ported over to consoles. So, oh yeah, then of course there's games that were on portable systems that eventually became console versions, like the Hatsune Miku Project Diva game, the latest one being Project Diva F, going multi-platform, so being released on Vita and PS3 for the first time, being a home console system. So, that's just to name a few examples of games that have been ported over in some way. Then there's pricing. The game is going to be, $50, so the price of a brand new PS2 game, when PS2 was around, that's how much PS2 games would actually cost. And that was not too long ago, so, and people are getting worked up over that, and it's like, really, you're getting worked up over that? I actually kind of expected it, because I didn't expect Code Veronica to be $10 just because it was on Dreamcast when it was ported over to PS2. It was sold for a full $50 on PS2. And then later with GameCube, it was more or less the same thing, if maybe $10, $20 less. So I don't get why people are getting worked up over that when, it's a standard procedure. Like, it happens with every re-release. Almost every re-release, Um, I mean, I'm pretty sure if you were to buy Resident Evil 4 and Code Veronica on this from Japan, it would be more or less the same price. Um, Even though it doesn't really make sense considering that, you know, you still have to install them to your console either way. um, Also, you know, there's a lot of people that played the game that liked it. Both critic and fan reaction was pretty much good. So that was something that Capcom, listening to fans, they bring over for people, and these people still complain about that. You know, it's just there's no pleasing anyone. It seems, and it's like really, if you're gonna hate just to hate and not even appreciate, then you can't expect anything good. Yeah, I mean, granted that Capcom may, with their business practices, they've been building a bad reputation for themselves. It hurts even more when you're not supporting a good business decision versus a bad business decision. Like, I totally understood the whole Street Fighter Cross Tekken not supporting the On This DLC stuff, but in this case, you know, a lot of the content in this game is being made after the fact. All the more recent content that we're gonna get with the home console version that the 3DS will not see at all. Um, so, in terms of them doing this, this is one of their good business decisions. Believe it or not. Then there's you know, the fact of playing the game. Obviously, people know about it, and then there's people that don't know about it and they try to act like it's new. But you can look online and already find out what the verdict is for the game because it's not a new game. Although essentially this re-release makes it feel that way because of all the new stuff they're adding into it. So it's just a matter of giving it a chance, and hopefully this kind of has a reverse effect on the series, leading it back into the route of being a more horror-oriented game. Anyway, I'm going to end the video here, and then I'll make another video, to talk about the game Remember Me. Sorry, it's just I got lost in thought for a second there. And the game was... Oh, but before I forget, in terms of action, I could see why a lot, Japanese developers are complaining about American developers creating more action-based games, because look at what happened to Resident Evil. And it's due to the fact that action sells. And most of the games in America, when they make it to Japan, guess what kind of games they are? And some of these games Capcom had to publish over there since they don't have a localized branch over there, like Grand Theft Auto 4. Rockstar may have made it here, and published it here, but Capcom doesn't have. I mean, not Capcom. Japan does not have a Rockstar branch, so Capcom published it for them over there. Call of Duty. It may be made by Activision here, but I'm pretty sure they do not have a Japanese branch. That Japan has to find one of their major developers to localize it. So, when you have games like Grand Theft Auto, Call of Duty, Battlefield, games like that coming out in Japan, then of course they're gonna get the idea that all these American developers, like, Americans are crazy. All they like are all these shooter games. While over here, a lot of people think that they only like all these RPG games. No, they make shooters too. I mean, Capcom makes that game Lost Planet, which is essentially a first-person shooting game, as far as I'm aware of. But they like other genres too, and that's the problem here, is that we have a lack of variety within our genres. And people can try to defend it all they want. It's just that I've seen that in terms of movies and games, even TV shows, we've been oversaturated with action. And I think it could use a break, you know? So, I was just gonna end on that note as far as, you know, concerning Resident Evil, and then I'll be talking about the game Remember Me in my next video. Um, so, you know, all I'm saying is, you don't have to love Capcom, you don't even have to love Resident Evil at this point, you know? But I am gonna say, give Resident Evil Revelations a chance, especially if you have not played it, because I know I haven't played it, I've seen it looks great, but I'm not gonna say I love the game because I haven't played it. So I'm just gonna give it a chance, and that's all I'm saying is give the game a chance. You know, judge it on its own merits, and then call it whatever you want to call it afterwards. But give it a chance. Anyway, I'll make another video soon. Have a nice day, y'all. Bye.